The Connecticut Huskies have gone back to back. Zach Edey put up 37 and 10, but the UConn Huskies controlled everyone else in a 75-60 game that they felt in control of, really wire to wire. Mark Zanetto from Locked On UConn joins me now. And Mark, we've been talking about this team all through the tournament and the ruthless efficiency that they play with on both ends is absolutely unbelievable. If I had told you before the game, though, that Zach Edey was going to have 37 and 10, would you believe that they would come out of this with what ends up being a comfortable win?
Absolutely. It's exactly what I talked about this morning. I taped around 10 a.m. And said, I was joking, but I said, let Zach Edey go for 50 for all we care, as long as you don't couple it with Braden Smith goes for 15, Mason Gillis comes off the bench for 20, or any of the others, as kind of what it's been happening, whether it's been Caitlin Clark and the others or Zach Edey and the others. Mm-hmm. Total teams, and you saw it with South Carolina, when you only have that one guy that you can kind of just say, okay, they're going to do their thing. But this UConn team really showed a lot of discipline and relentlessness, is what you mentioned, and I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, the similarities were sort of jumping off the screen as I was watching between South Carolina and UConn, South Carolina on the ladies' side, because they just, every possession, both ends, you can't make mistakes against this team. And what's remarkable to me, Mark, is to go back to back in an era with the transfer portal and one and dones and all of the talent that's in the game on the men's and women's side. What do you think deserves the biggest share of that credit pie?
Yeah, I think you could dice it up a little bit. I think, and this is to no fault of your own, Peter, it's, the UConn's been discredited a lot this year, and this is me, Dan Hurley versus the world. I've been Hurley-fied, you know what I mean? Like, we're everything that is said against us is some kind of slight. But I will say that I think, whether it's Steph Castle, I have a great little story about Cam Spencer. I'll keep it short, where a friend of mine who works with him, off the field, he said, you'll probably play in Europe. And he looked at him and said, I can't say what he said on the air, but he looked at him and said, don't ever say that to me again. There are guys in this team that have the chip on their shoulder, the size of a boulder. And you saw it tonight. Cam Spencer is 6'4". I think he had 12 rebounds. I mean, listen, this team, Steph Castle is going to be an NBA player. It may not be the Zion Williamson that everyone wants, but this collective effort, this amount of team that is so connected and locked in, is really impressive. And it really started a couple years back when they lost in the NCAA tournament. Couple of quick exits out. They realized they needed to change their offense. And so I would say 60% on this team and this coaching staff, which is pretty old school, to kind of lean towards a more efficient, modern offense. But it's also the recruiting. They have what they call old souls, guys who probably, you and I are on the same age. These guys grew up in a different era. And they're searching for those players, not just talent. They're searching for those players to stay connected. Does
it change the way you have to recruit or can recruit? Like, because presumably you're going to get those guys too.
Yeah, I hear your point. I think it may change. I think it may change the way coaches look at. We might need to work on our offense. If you watch,
maybe some other teams need to recruit a little differently. Is the point?
Yeah, I think that's the bigger, the overarching theme is. Just like the NFL, college basketball and coaches steal from everything. It's a copycat league. So you're going to see teams go, let's watch UConn. But then it's going to be like, do we have the type of players to kind of run this offense? Right. I'll give you one quick possession when Alex Garibin didn't make too many shots tonight. But he was, if you're a UConn fan, you love the way he played. Defensively, timely rebounds, tip outs. But the one time Kaufman-Wren left him to kind of check after a loose ball to kind of almost double and make a chance. He flared out to the baseline, hit a wide open three, put them up about 14, 15. It was kind of on their way on the ascension of them taking over this game. That's what is so great about UConn. When you make a mistake, they make you pay.
Going back to back in an era like this, how can you put into perspective an accomplishment like that, given this whole conversation about the kinds of guys that they've recruited and how Hurley has changed the culture here? Like how do you try and put this into perspective historically?
All I can do is I'm 42 years old. I'll be 43. When I was 9 years old, we made a run to the Elite Eight as the dream season, what it was called, right? And we lost to Duke at the buzzer. I just always thought as a kid, and then getting into, as they ascended, that we were always going to be good, but I never thought we'd ever be here. 6 titles, more than Duke.
Yeah.
Do something that Duke did, go back to back, tied with North Carolina, just behind Kentucky, where 3 of their titles are before the 60s. Just having this success in this era, it's hard to quantify, but we're here and we're going to enjoy it as UConn fans. It's the basketball capital of the world. I know the UConn women didn't win this year, but they've won enough. I think it's time for the men to reach the same status as the women, and just to continue to kind of, make this climb up that mountain. So all the credit to Dan Hurley and his staff and these players, just a phenomenal team. And it's hard to put into perspective, but I'm going to enjoy this one even more than last year.
Stay up to date all year on the UConn Huskies by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On UConn on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube.